The United States has imposed new tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. The goal is to support domestic industries, reduce reliance on foreign metals, and strengthen national security. The policy includes 1. A 25% tariff on imported steel. 2. A 10% tariff on imported aluminum. Officials argue that these tariffs will help American manufacturers by limiting cheaper foreign competition. They claim that a strong domestic steel and aluminum sector is essential for economic and military stability. But major trade partners are pushing back. While Canada and the EU retaliate, Canada and the European Union have responded with retaliatory tariffs. Instead of taxing raw materials, they are targeting American exports. 1. Canada has announced tariffs on $20.6 billion worth of U.S. goods. 2. The European Union has introduced up to 50% tariffs on selected American products. These countermeasures escalate trade tensions, increasing uncertainty for businesses and consumers. This video will explore 1. Why the U.S. imposed these tariffs. 2. How Canada and the EU are retaliating. 3. Which industries are most affected. 4. The economic consequences based on historical trade disputes. Understanding these policies is key to predicting their impact. Let's break it down. Why the U.S. imposed tariffs. The U.S. government argues that cheap steel and aluminum imports have harmed domestic producers. Foreign competitors, particularly from China, have flooded the market with lower-cost metals. As a result, American steel and aluminum industries have struggled with declining production and job losses. Supporters of the tariffs say these measures will level the playing field by making domestic products more competitive. The policy is part of a broader effort to rebuild U.S. manufacturing. Similar trade restrictions have been used in the past to protect key industries. The tariffs impose 1. A 25% duty on imported steel. Officials claim that reducing reliance on foreign metals will strengthen national security and economic stability. But the decision has already sparked retaliation. Canada's response. Canada has announced its own set of tariffs in direct response to U.S. trade restrictions. These countermeasures target over $20.6 billion worth of American goods. The tariffs are designed to apply pressure on U.S. policymakers, encouraging them to reconsider the steel and aluminum duties. Officials argue that the U.S. actions unfairly impact Canadian industries, despite their long-standing trade relationship. Products affected include 1. Steel and aluminum exports. 2. Agricultural goods like orange juice and peanut butter. 3. Everyday consumer products, from household appliances to packaged foods. By strategically selecting these items, Canada aims to impact American industries and workers in states that rely heavily on exports. The response has gained strong support from Canadian steel and aluminum producers, who say these tariffs help protect their industry. However, U.S. businesses that depend on Canadian imports now face rising costs, putting pressure on manufacturers and retailers. The trade standoff between the two countries is growing. But Canada is not alone. The European Union has also taken action. European Union's response. The European Union has responded with its own set of retaliatory tariffs. These measures are designed to match the financial damage caused by U.S. trade restrictions. The tariffs focus on high-profile American exports, including 1. Whiskey, a key U.S. export with strong sales in Europe. 2. Motorcycles, affecting manufacturers like Harley-Davidson. 3. Motorboats and other recreational vehicles, which are popular in European markets. European officials have made it clear. If the U.S. continues its tariff policies, the EU will escalate its response. More tariffs on agricultural goods, industrial products, and consumer goods are expected in the coming months. The EU argues that these U.S. tariffs violate international trade agreements. Officials warn that prolonged trade disputes could harm both economies, reducing exports and increasing costs for businesses. With both sides refusing to back down, trade tensions are at risk of further escalation. Economic consequences. Trade disputes always come with economic consequences, affecting both businesses and consumers. When tariffs increase, prices on affected products rise, making goods more expensive for buyers. Industries that rely on imported raw materials face higher production costs, which can lead to 1. Lower profit margins for manufacturers. 2. Price hikes for consumers. 3. Reduced global competitiveness. Who is impacted the most? Farmers and manufacturers are among the hardest hit. Retaliatory tariffs block access to international markets, making it difficult for American exporters to compete globally. For example, 1. U.S. soybean farmers struggled when China imposed tariffs in past trade disputes. 2. Automakers that rely on foreign steel and aluminum face rising costs, which can slow production. 3. Small businesses that import raw materials must either absorb the extra cost or pass it to consumers. Lessons from past trade wars. History has shown that prolonged trade wars can slow economic growth and lead to job losses. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930 triggered global retaliation and worsened the Great Depression. In 2018, steel and aluminum tariffs led to increased costs for manufacturers and retaliatory tariffs from allies. A risk to global supply chains. If trade tensions continue to rise, global supply chains could face significant disruptions. Delays in shipments, rising costs, and uncertainty could force companies to shift production to other countries. This could create long-term shifts in global trade networks, making it harder for businesses to operate efficiently. As this dispute escalates, the economic ripple effects will be felt worldwide. Historical perspective trade disputes between the United States and its allies are not new. Similar conflicts in the past have led to global economic shifts, often with unintended consequences. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, 1930. One of the most infamous trade policies in U.S. history, this act imposed high tariffs on thousands of imported goods. The goal was to protect American industries during the Great Depression, but it backfired. 1. Countries retaliated with their own tariffs, reducing U.S. exports. 2. Global trade collapsed by more than 60%. 3. The economic downturn deepened worldwide, worsening the Great Depression. This example serves as a warning about the dangers of aggressive trade barriers. The 2018 steel and aluminum tariffs. Under the Trump administration, the U.S. imposed 25% tariffs on steel and 10% on aluminum. The policy aimed to protect American metal industries but sparked immediate backlash. 1. Canada and the EU retaliated, imposing tariffs on U.S. goods like whiskey, motorcycles, and agricultural products. 2. The dispute hurt American exporters, forcing some businesses to cut jobs or shift production overseas. 3. Eventually, negotiations led to revised trade agreements, easing tensions but leaving lasting economic effects. What history teaches us? Tariff battles often lead to short-term protections for domestic industries, but come with long-term risks. 1. Trade restrictions can push industries to relocate, weakening economic stability. 2. Retaliatory tariffs harm global supply chains, driving up costs for consumers. 3. Some trade wars end in negotiations, but the damage to industries can last for years. History shows that while tariffs can be a tool for economic leverage, they often come at a price. As tensions rise between the US, Canada, and the EU, will this trade dispute follow the same pattern? What happens next? Trade negotiations could ease tensions if both sides find common ground. A compromise could involve reduced tariffs, trade exemptions, or industry-specific agreements. But if talks fail, businesses and consumers will feel the impact. Higher costs on raw materials and finished goods could lead to price increases across multiple industries. Could this escalate into a larger trade war? The long-term effects of these tariffs depend on how trade partners react. If the US, Canada, and the EU continue imposing new tariffs, the situation could spiral into a broader trade war. A full-scale trade conflict could disrupt international markets, leading to 1. Lower business investment due to uncertainty. 2. Rising inflation as imported goods become more expensive. 3. Job losses in industries affected by reduced exports. If past trade wars have taught us anything, it is that economic retaliation can have unintended consequences. Governments and industries will need to adapt. Many companies may restructure supply chains to minimize tariff costs and seek alternative markets. The next few months will determine whether this situation stabilizes or escalates further. Final thoughts. The latest tariffs on steel and aluminum have sparked international trade disputes. Canada and the EU have responded forcefully, setting the stage for continued economic friction. The outcome depends on whether negotiations can de-escalate tensions or if the conflict intensifies. What do you think? Will these tariffs help American industries by boosting domestic production? Or will they trigger economic decline, driving up prices and hurting businesses? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on the latest trade developments. Sources are listed in the description below.